All right, well, we're gonna call to order at 7:26. And I'm sure Liz will find her way here, but hey, Kristen, do you mind taking minutes until she gets here for me? Okay. All right, so we're all committee members, so I can skip public comment unless anyone has anything for that portion of our agenda that doesn't fit into the regular agenda. Okay. All right, so we have a couple of different things to talk about. And the first is looking at the options for the Listen Up screening. So if you haven't already had a chance, in the agenda are the different options that I had tossed out to the principal to see what she thought. I keep looking here, but I don't need to do that. To see what she thought might work best, and based on you know, the way assemblies typically happen and what we did last time. So you can see her feedback on the different options. So I'm interested in hearing from folks. I added some questions at the bottom to help us think about what our next steps should be, which options seem the most promising. Should we get feedback from anyone else first? Is there anything missing? And based on that, what our next steps should be. I would also add that Elisa and I had the chance to be part of a conversation at Bristol Elementary around anti-racism and inclusion, or race identity and inclusion. And I think whatever we do at Mount Abe, we could certainly market pretty broadly and including to the Bristol Elementary community. That's just an aside. So that's something I wanted to mention. So let's talk about the options and what folks think.
I'll go.
Okay.
So based on the feedback that Shannon provided, I guess I had two separate schools of thought.
Mm-hmm.
The one that to me sounded like it made the most sense was the second bullet point, the all school assembly with circle prompts and advisory after.
Mm-hmm.
I systematically that makes the most sense to me, and by having the group afterwards, it's fresh, and you know, the smaller groups like Shannon has indicated, there's probably a better chance of more in-depth conversation amongst each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, you know, if that didn't work, you know, I would say the following bullet after that one. I think the only drawback with using the fit block is that a lot of students, you know, they're utilizing that to you know, make up tests or, you know, get additional instruction or you know, so that's why I thought that would be like, yeah, just you know, just as a backup.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of getting feedback, I'd be interested to know what the community council would think,
Mm-hmm.
as well as even possibly Eagle leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really seem to think that there were options missing, but I think that question could be answered after getting feedback from students,
Mm-hmm.
if they felt that there were options missing, because they're the ones that will know more than us. And then in terms of target date or month, definitely after the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, even more specifically the start of the new semester, just because it's all fresh, everybody's done with the previous semester.
Mm-hmm.
So that's me in a nutshell.
Can I ask, what exactly is our goal for trying to do these discussions? Like, what do we want to come out of them? Are we looking for information or for ourselves to guide work going forward? Is this just a way for students to talk about the issues they're having? Do we want to have any kind of training or support based on them? Because I think maybe what we do is going to be influenced by what we want.
What reactions do folks have to that?
I don't know, I think it seems like all of the above, but I think at this point, maybe the committee needs to talk about what's most important. I feel like some of the students have seen it already, and maybe they become. So that leaves the question in my mind about what's their thinking going to be. I see it as education or awareness for students. This is what's going on. What are your reactions? And then maybe we need to see what comes out of these screenings and what the discussions look like, and then consider seeing what our goals may be. I mean, maybe a general awareness would be the first step.
Because it seems to me that if we want to capture students' reactions so that we know as a committee what we want to do going forward, what we want to prioritize, which is something we've been talking about like getting more information and about, our students feeling like mental health is something they really need a lot of support with, or anti-racism, or, there are sort of different avenues. And it might be hard to go to every single advisory, have one of us go there and hear all of this information that comes out in the discussions. And it also would be more obtrusive to have somebody sitting there in a small group a stranger they're not used to. If we just want to provide an avenue for them to talk about these issues and start getting a conversation among each other that's not informed by any sort of trained professional, then the advisories would be great. But it would be hard for us to actually know what was happening in that, and which may be fine. And then if we want to have this as a jumping off point for an actual training with students for anti-racism or other things that we had also been talking about, we could try to incorporate that. But and I don't know how that would look in terms of advisories or whatever. I don't know how we would set that up.
I have another thought. I worry about students not being within a trusted group when they see this, if they're speaking about it afterwards. And it seems like the advisories have a history of meeting together. So that might be the best option for them. And maybe just to piggyback on what you're saying, perhaps if they're willing to put a statement together at the end of that meeting, and that can be totally optional, we could get that information. Just maybe a statement from the group as to what their thoughts might be.
I'm trying to remember exactly how circle prompts work. I don't know if you know, Beth, in terms of, I know they're discussions, but there may also be space for getting input that a teacher would, capture in some way. Do you know, Beth, if that is an option?
It's a protocol, and there's a question that's asked following a certain protocol with a facilitator. And I wanted to piggyback that I do think it's important that the school principal wrote that the second option, the circle prompts and advisory, tends to be the most effective. And I also think it's important that pre-work, kind of like that knowledge of what they have before and then after, I think is really important for learning as well. And it tends to causes reflective practice, and kids are used to doing more and more of that. But I agree. I do think the advisory, because those kids are comfortable, they are small groups. It is a safe spot. But yeah, so I think it does need to be facilitated with a protocol, though. I don't think it being, I think there need to be a process for facilitators to be trained as well.
What does pre-work look like for something like this? How would you even know what that would be? Like who would
Yeah.
come up with that?
Yeah, I think it would be about, finding out what kids know, their prior knowledge, before they watch this. And then, like I said, through the protocol, you would follow. But I think it's really important to, there's an acronym, I'm forgetting it now, but what kids know before they learn something and then what they learn from it. And it also you can tap into biases that students have that they might not even recognize. So it really does lead to a lot of other information and conversation.
Are you thinking of like what you know, what you want to know, and what you've learned?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That's it.
I don't, maybe it's just me, but I consider the Listen Up movie to be experiential rather than intellectual. So I don't think of it as that they're coming to learn something, but they're coming to have an experience from their peers. And they're coming to see where they relate, how do they relate to those experiences, and to have a conversation about their own experiences with the same topics. So it's not to me so much about a learning thing. It's not an academic thing. It's a human being thing where they're having empathy and they're having, oh, that happened to me too, or yes, I felt that way, or wow, that's really strange. I had no idea that some students felt this way. It's more that kind of a conversation than what do I want to learn? What did I learn? That kind of thing. I think it needs a different frame work to be presented. I agree that your suggestion, I think, seems like one of the better ones. I like the idea of pre-work, but it can be something like these are some of the topics that are going to come up in the film, and how do you feel about that? Like when you hear them, do they resonate with you? It's not, I don't know that it has to be, again, a kind of an academic experiment there, but more of an experiential one. I like the idea of post-work too, and I think it would be really, really interesting. I think of a place like Middlebury College that has J term, right? And so for the whole J term, all the students get to do some different kind of thing from everything else in the semester. And I realize that our school schedule can't allow for only this one topic. Other school things have to happen too. But if it was sort of a J term kind of thing where early in January, the pre-work 1 week, the second week, the viewing of the films, the third week, the circles, and the fourth week, some kind of follow-up. So that it was kind of a longer, so this is the kind of thing that kids, and not just kids, but me too, watching the film, as I kept digesting the material of the film and the experiences that were shared in the film, my discernment changed, my reference frame changed, my relationship to all of it changed. And I think it would be really neat to give it that much time, to have at least 4 sessions related to the film. And I think of it again as it's a way to start a conversation in a small group about these really big topics. Just an honest conversation. And I don't see it as, some of my most important teachers in my life have said, trust doesn't come in the beginning, it comes at the end. And so I see it as a way of building trust between students. This is a trust building experience and a relationship experience. And it's about starting the conversation. What is it like to start a conversation about mental health? What is it like to have a conversation about internalized racism or whatever it is? Like there could be one circle for each of those topics during the month of January and maybe into early February. so that it became a whole thing. And then it could be, maybe we provide whoever's facilitating the circles or the teachers or whoever with a feedback form where we could ask some specific questions that could support our group going forward with things, and ask them at the end of the end of that little J term thing, if they would just fill out the feedback form and return it to us, anonymous from students' names. So, yeah, that's what I've been thinking about.
I was going to say very much the same thing, Elisa. I don't, if there was to be any goal, it would be for the kids to be heard and to be listened to. These are really big emotional issues for these kids. And one of the biggest message I got from Listen Up is, please listen to me. Listen to what I have to say, listen to what I'm going through. And this is how you can help me. And I guess that's what I thought this was going to be about, was more about making our kids feel safe and heard and respected for wherever they are and however they are.
It might
And
be
that's-
interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you want to finish?
No,
your
that's
thought?
okay. No,
Okay.
that's okay. I think I got my point across.
I was wondering, and Beth, I don't know what you think about this, but one of the people in the meeting yesterday in Bristol was the social and emotional learning coordinator, Julie, and this is her, under her umbrella is this sort of work. And I wonder if she might be a good person to get additional feedback from. So if we say the assembly format with the advisor space seems like a good one to show this film as a way to begin giving kids the opportunity to have some of these conversations, knowing the structure of the current, advising system and the amount of time that they have and the way that works. What suggestions would you have for how we could roll that out in a way that's supportive, and also that I think the teachers who are facilitating it feel equipped to do, because,
Yes.
one concern I think we really need to attend to if we're good, is that folks have lots of different comfort with facilitating these conversations. And so, and we're not responsible for ensuring that they have that degree of comfort or experience. We can provide an opportunity in this committee to bring forth conversations, but I think we just need to be careful we don't set up a situation where folks aren't able to create that space for students and then it's not a good experience. So maybe that's something that could be built toward as part of the ongoing work, but it would be great. And I wonder if Julie could provide some of that feedback. I know she has small kids, so I don't know that she'd be able to actually come to a meeting in the evening, but it's worth a conversation with her about, we have this idea of something we'd like to do. And here's how we think it could work. What suggestions do you have? Yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah, thanks, Krista. I think that's a good idea, to brainstorm with that person, what their thoughts are. One thing on what you were just sharing about facilitation that I know has worked in groups, is to sort of have a guideline with the group, some principles, but the main one is that you don't crosstalk with each other. So that can help the facilitator, and becoming like a back and forth kind of thing, and that it's okay to disagree. So you could set it up like, talk from your own experience and what's coming up for you. I think different ages, I think we're talking about the high school right now. So I think that's appropriate to work with, and and that the facilitators, you know, gently reminding people if that starts to turn into something else, that we're really just here to listen to each other and hear what's happening, what's coming up. You know, for me, when I was thinking about a goal, it wasn't so much about capturing something from them, but again, them having an experience of seeing the film and getting the opportunity to talk about their experience. I think that could be enough. You know, and we're talking about trying to think about, you know, the culture in the school. So sharing with each other is a way of creating that space for culture together. So, and I think, yeah, the idea of a larger assembly to see the film and then breaking down into the circle prompt group. So it may be, you know, two or maybe 3 questions, because, you know, not too many things, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I would say, or not, you know, maybe one feedback question if we really want to get something, but not, you know, like, I would hate for them to kind of get caught up in like having to translate that all out to us and lose being in their own felt experience or their, you know, emotional, whatever is coming up, or they may be, yeah, so I'll stop there because I think that's enough.
And I don't know if it's helpful to clarify too. I think maybe maximum of 5 students were at the film that we showed.
Yeah.
So not hardly any,
Yeah.
very, very few. And I think 2 of them were from elementary school and they were just there with parents. And the other 3 were maybe students here, but that was it. Yeah.
Thanks. So how was, I was just curious, when you talked with Shannon, right? You spoke with, the
We
principal.
emailed.
Yeah. Did she indicate like how much time she was willing to give to this? Like, could it be over segmented time, or do they think it's just gonna be a one-shot deal, or?
Good
Like,
question.
I
Yeah.
wonder about that.
I mean, I think that would be part of what I'd be curious to hear from Julie and also Shannon, to say how many advisory circles are already spoken for in terms of topics. The assembly part, screening is one thing, but then the pre-work, I don't know if that would, I don't know, I guess is the
Yeah,
answer.
so that's maybe something we need to.
Yep.
Ask or
Yeah.
find out, negotiate. or
Yeah.
Whatever, whatever the process
Yep.
would be, to just to see what we
What's
actually can-
realistic.
Yeah.
And I think that is important to keep in mind, that we are, you know, there's two, we talked about this last time, that, you know, and hearing the speaker earlier about the math curriculum, it's really building a whole systems culture and change.
That's right.
And that takes a really long time.
Mhm.
It takes, you heard she's gone into every single classroom, so she's listening
Mhm.
and assessing first to see what the needs are. And so I think this is a one event. It isn't, and it's limited. We're not responsible for, this committee is responsible for getting feedback to help dictate how the system moves. Having this event, I think, is really powerful for students, but it isn't our focus to orchestrate all the different ways to do that. It's our focus to figure out how to get the system to find ways to do that.
Yeah.
Because the questions about what's realistic in terms of time, what are the barriers, what are they, those are not ones we can solve.
Right.
But we can by listening, and that was why I was really interested in having those conversations that I proposed last time with students and with staff and with primarily students and staff, to hear, you know, beyond a particular thing, what do you think is missing? What do you think we need? And that gives a lot of power for the board to then go to the system and say, this is what folks want. You figure out how that works based on what you need to achieve in a school year. Right? So I think we have to keep in mind that this is a one opportunity that could generate additional folks within the system wanting to do more, which is amazing. Like, again, the Bristol conversation last night, where I think there was a recognition there too of, we can do something right now, which is bringing in books and asking community members to read. That's amazing. That's an immediate thing.
Yeah.
But also, what can we do to move the needle system-wide?
Yeah. You know,
So-
a couple things came to mind when Elisa, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it right, spoke. I really love your vision, but two things came to my mind just having worked in schools. The first thing, I love the idea of doing this, but I hope we're not like throwing, you know, with all the kids watching, throwing a firecracker in and having some results of kids. I want to make sure there's support. Like, these are issues that kids have. Are we going to see big reactions after viewing? And I haven't seen the film, so I don't want, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a good question to ask Shannon, because she has seen it and I think can help determine
Yeah,
whether that's
so maybe,
a conversation that could happen. I think it is. I mean, I think they have a lot of hard
and
speakers come in about a range of topics,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So I don't think that would be,
It seems like that you yourself might feel a little more comfortable if you went and watched the film.
yeah, I
Yes,
have the link that I could
really-
share to
I
you.
really need to. I
Very
know.
easy to access.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great. And then
Yeah.
number two is, I love your idea of building community. And because I think we're handing it over to the to the teachers, you know, because this is gonna become their baby if they choose to continue the work. Is that from what I just heard you say?
Well, I guess,
If they choose to do that, like, they don't have to, but we need their support.
right. And I think, like, on the school board, we can try to move the needle as far as what we can encourage and support for a district-wide focus. But there are so many priorities that we're trying to focus on, and we just heard an amazing investment in math. That's
Exactly.
a huge investment of time, energy, resources. But sometimes also you can move the needle when folks are within the system and are saying, this is really great, and I want to do more with my class or with my co-teachers.
Right.
And that also is important. And so, you know, I think that our role is to really, you know, get feedback to know what people are looking for. But we
Yeah.
talked last time about a desire to also do something.
Mhm.
And when we showed that last time, there was a lot of interest in seeing when else it could be offered. So I think that's a realistic thing for us to do.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's realistic for us to plan out an entire anti-racism education program, because that's not our role. Our role
No,
is
I
to figure out how to encourage that work to happen, if that's what our community is seeing as a need. So how do we hear from folks what that need is? How do we raise that up? And it might be mental health, it might be LGBTQ plus issues, it might be racism, it might be all the things. How do we raise that up? That's kind of our,
And-
Yeah, and I wanted to mention within our multi-tiered system of supports, with SEL, we have quite a bit to offer. So if this film is viewed as a whole school community, everyone, kitchen staff, bus drivers, you know, like everybody. And then we have, you know, our guidance counselors, let's just say universally, every student has a guidance counselor, they have access to that. And then we have our next tier, which we have school-based clinicians from CSAC for a little, you know, kids that might need a little more intervention. And then we have social workers as well. And so we have an abundance amount of staff, and if everybody watched the film together, then all kids are going to get what they need, from universal to, you know, our kids that would need to preview these concepts because of trauma or disability, whatever. But I do think our system is so designed right now to do something like this. Our advisories have, you know, meeting norms already established. Jennifer, you spoke about speaking over each other, right? Like those are already established in our advisories. So I do like the idea. I guess my one thought is, you know, I would love to be more organic with it, with the momentum, because I see momentum is going to happen. And I think Shannon would support that 100% if we need to give up advisories when it happens, when a discussion happens. And that does happen in advisory when kids bring something up, you know, they do sit down and they all talk about it. So yeah, I initially, you know, I'm all about like facilitating and progress monitoring and but now I'm starting to see, like, if we follow the students' lead and need with all of our experts in the building, it could be very powerful.
Thank you,
So
Beth.
what,
I think that's
oh,
amazing.
sorry, go
I
ahead,
love
Jennifer.
that. Thank you for sharing that.
So, would it make sense? So Beth, would it make sense to, I mean, do you think Julie would be able to join us? Or do you, like, how do we
Yeah.
do that then?
Yeah,
How do we-
absolutely. We can invite her. And she works with all the people I just mentioned. You know, and I think there might be, you know, I can think of a guidance counselor that might want to come too. I think there's a lot of people that are just waiting for the platform and for it to, you know, to happen. I know they are. So, and I can help you with that, who to invite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's the kind of information I was looking for.
Mhm.
Just, I was feeling a little tenuous. So that reassures me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would agree. And
Me too.
to kind of piggyback on that, I feel like the points that you shared sort of it speaks to the fact that there will be anticipated momentum gain from the viewing.
Yeah.
And just, you know, just to kind of, it's reassuring to know that conversations will happen from this.
And that we're not solely responsible. for
Exactly.
them.
Exactly.
That makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
Because we are so much bigger than just this, but
Right.
I was worried if we shouldn't be totally driving the train.
Yes.
And so that's awesome.
That was my concern as well. Yeah.
I want to suggest something, and folks can push back if they don't like this idea, but I feel like I want to suggest we focus on starting with this and in trying to get a meeting where some other folks can join us,
Mhm.
and hold off and looking at some of the other speakers that we were considering. I really think this would be a great place to start.
Yeah.
And could take a life of its own. And I'm seeing heads nodding, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I would also wonder if, you know, if it turns out that 5 p.m. is better for Julie, who has young kids, if this group would be amenable to looking at our times to meet and flexing a little based
Absolutely.
on that. Okay.
Totally.
I have
All
a
right.
feeling she's gonna be really into it.
Yeah, I mean, from the conversation we
Yeah.
had yesterday, it
Yeah.
is like a synergy that's finally happening,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
really great, and
Yeah.
I think you're right, so. Okay, great. So I'm gonna just jump on down to the next item, and we're already at 8 o'clock, so we don't need to take a lot of time on this. And again, thanks folks for being patient with the late start. I was traveling, so I did not go to our budget development meeting. Did anyone here go to that? And if
I
so,
was sick, I couldn't go.
oh, I'm sorry. Liz,
I went to the budget meeting.
how was
Did it
it?
in person and everything. It was awesome. Like, was awesome. We had a few people. It's some good feedback was that and Beth was there, right? And we got some good feedback that this felt like it was a lot earlier than we usually have community engagement for the budget. And so there may not have been a lot of attendance, but it does seem like something we could continue to do moving forward. And it was really helpful to have, I think, the presentation done by a board member, and I was very impressed by the way that he and how the finance committee was able to really articulate a lot of the aspects of the budget and record some questions. So I think it was a good additional step to our budget process.
And do you know what sort of follow-up there might be for folks that attended, if there were questions or?
Yep. Mike and Sarah were taking notes on that, and they were going to, what they communicated was that they would, at their next meeting, engage in some conversations around some of those questions and see, kind of like the same way that with public comment, like what they could find answers to and get back to people on, they would.
Awesome.
And they did have a form for people to take a screenshot and fill out a Google form, and they had a form in person for people to give feedback as well. There was just a handful though.
Okay, great. And then we're not doing anything yet around central office, but there will be some community engagement there. And so I think what you described, Liz, is what we're trying to do as a board with all big decisions we have to make, is to try to make sure that we're finding timely ways to educate people about what's happening, to find the places where their input is really helpful, and to make sure that we let folks know how that input's been used and try to answer people's questions and be really transparent. And so it sounds like we're getting there with the budget piece, and hopefully we'll do the same for the conversation about the central office. And then the last thing is the public participation process. And I'm gonna just ask that we table that for right now. I meant to put a link, but I forgot. We had a protocol that I read at our last meeting for our public comment section of our board meetings. But it's still a work in progress, and I'd really love feedback from this group. We really want to try to figure out how to strike the balance of making people feel like the effort they put in to come to a meeting to share whatever's on their mind is worth their time. And also to know that we also have the work of the board that needs to happen at the meeting. And so trying to figure out how to do that is a balancing act, but one we're really trying to get better at. And so that public comment process is one part of it. Hearing people's voices happens in a lot of ways beyond public comment, but for some people, that's the only time they might engage with us. And a lot of times, I mean, I forget how stressful it can be to come to talk to the board. So anyway, so stay tuned on that.
Can I just add something?
Yes.
Just my initial thoughts. I thought it was, I love the direction that this is going. I
Good.
think it's huge because I feel like a common theme that I was taking away from board meetings last year was that people just, they would ask questions, but we couldn't answer because of Robert's rules and so on and so forth. So I really like the direction that this is going. So
Great,
just a little feedback.
great, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Does anyone have anything else that we didn't touch on or anything to add to things we've already talked about?
No, but do we have a confirmed time for the January meeting?
For our committee meeting?
For this
Good
meeting?
question. Because the first, oh no, we're usually the second Tuesday. Yep, that, oh, darn it. We should be meeting on Tuesday, January 9th. However, I have I have a conflict. The following Tuesday would be the 16th. Does that work for people instead?
It's okay with me.
Okay,
It's okay.
and how about folks online? Does that work?
6:30 to 8.
We're usually from 6 to 8.
Oh, 6 to 8, that's
Yep.
right. You can't keep track.
You
Yeah,
and me
that-
both.
That works for me.
Okay, great.
So just a clarifying question, for this next meeting, do we foresee that this be a place to potentially have people, additional people come to join us to figure out next steps for the Listen Up implementation, if you will?
Yeah.
Because I'd love for us to continue this momentum to get it out there.
Yep.
So that we can focus on, all right, cool, let's see how this goes. This is our guinea pig,
Yeah.
so we can figure out what we want to tackle next.
Yep. So I think what we would do is maybe what we can do, Beth and I, we can chat about who to invite and we can see how that date and time works for folks
Mhm.
that we might invite. And if for some reason it looks like we have enough notice that if it looks like that is not going to work for people, maybe we can look to find a different time for our committee to meet that works better for those other folks. But yeah, I agree.
And maybe turn Julie loose on it as soon as possible, so she can really come
Yeah,
with, her vision.
yeah. And I think we can provide some background information to her and to whomever else beforehand.
She should see the surveys from Listen Up.
Yeah,
So just to clarify, we're gonna meet again in January and listen up and decide more about Listen Up.
yeah. So we're going to have, we're going to invite Julie Pettis, who's the social emotional learning coordinator. And Beth, maybe you had ideas of a couple of other folks to let them know this is something we'd like to do, share with them the time frame that we're thinking about, and ask for their thoughts, feedback, and also just, hey, heads up, we're hoping that there will be some momentum around this, so we really want to make sure it's successful. What do you suggest we do to ensure that? And get ready. How can you help us keep building after it's shown?
So we're not gonna wait too much further into the year to show it, though, correct or not correct?
I mean, I hope not, yeah. So maybe what we can do is find out what the, well, I'm trying to think if there's anything we could do in advance.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing because that's like now we're 6 weeks away.
Yep.
And you've got February break and April break that you don't want to do it right before either one of those necessarily. So I'm just trying to think of a time frame.
Maybe sharing enough in advance, hey, you've been, lucky you've been identified as somebody that we'd like to, have to help implement this. Here's what we're looking at before, once we've decided when the right meeting timing is, please come help us to determine when we want to do this and next steps, maybe just have them participate in the pre-work for this next meeting, because I think that would, getting them enough information in advance, letting them know what we're looking to accomplish from this next meeting.
Yeah.
I think will help.
Yeah,
And
I
would-
agree with you. Well, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and I was just gonna say, we should probably pencil in a few dates, for the
We want to
the auditorium, with Shannon. And then that'll give us like something we have to work towards. We can't just keep talking about it. Yeah.
Thank you. And
And
thanks.
because
for
we
the-
don't really need these folks to pick dates with us. What we
Right.
need
No.
is help them make sure teachers have what they need to have a good conversation before
Yeah.
and after,
Yeah.
and then also to be thinking about the after.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's a really good suggestion.
That's great. And thank you for those who are doing that in between work. I appreciate you all.
Appreciate you all. All right.
Okay.
So I think we have a good plan, and I'll let folks know of what information we get between now and the 16th. And there's nothing else. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn at 8:12.
I just wanted to add one more thing is that you mentioned that we don't want to talk about bringing in anyone else now, but people fill up like years in advance, and to get really good people, we do. And I think we should talk about it next time, or I don't know the list. Is a list on the agenda of people that we're considering? 'Cause
Yeah, there's a link.
Okay, because we could all look at that and maybe decide top 2 or 3, but people are full, like in demand. So just saying, we don't want to put it off too long, even if it's for next year.
And I wonder if we could get feedback on this list from other people
Mm.
too. Like, who else could we get feedback from? Okay,
Yeah, I mean, once I look at it, people talk amongst circles, so I could if I know the names on it. Yeah.
and I did put Seed the Way on there. And I put a
Okay.
couple of the ones from Elisa, and also the woman who worked in Bristol with the town that Porter coordinated. Yeah, so we've got, I think, a good start. I guess my main concern is that we know how to decide what's most meaningful for folks. Like, if our target is staff, I'm not sure we're the group to know who the best, I don't know. I just want to make
Mhm.
sure it's well received and useful. So any thoughts you have on how to get that input, Beth, is welcome. Okay. Great. All right. So we had a motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We will see and talk soon.